Up to this point in the fish files, we've been covering tropical fish. Today, we're going to cover a cold water species that can handle a whole array of temperatures and is usually the starter fish, that or a beta, for any kid who gets into the aquarium hobby. And for adults, it becomes a passion because there are so many varieties of this particular fish. And of course, I'm talking about Carassius auratus, the goldfish. But before I start, I want to show this little nano tank we built 4 weeks ago. We introduced quite a few species in here. And in fact, I have a new species in here, a lobster called the Barbie pink lobster. It's just trendy. I think before that it was called something else. It's a naturally bred pink lobster. And he has left the shrimp untouched. So I found that quite interesting. I thought they would be in peril, but everybody in this tank is getting along. Maybe the poor female endler with these 4 male endlers might be not getting along quite so well. But the albino half-beak is doing beautifully. Shrimp are doing beautifully. Celestial rasboras have grown a bit. All in all, I think this is a pretty good tank that we bought from Underwater Depot. So thanks guys at Underwater Depot. Okay, so Carassius auratus, the common goldfish, is native to China, and it has been bred in China for 1,000 years. Approximately 400 years ago, it was exported to Japan, and a few varieties actually carry Dutch names in Japan because down the road, for some reason, it happened in the 1600s when Dutch traders were all over the place. They thought it came from Holland or the Netherlands, whatever the heck the difference is between those two places. The Netherlands name Oranda, for instance, on one of the goldfish, got passed through history, even though it came from China. That's just a little historical note on the origin of goldfish. Today in China, there's 300 varieties of goldfish. Just like the American Kennel Association here with the dog shows, there's an association in China that recognizes whether a variety is a true variety or not. They recognize 300 varieties, and we're going to show you like 10. But these are the ones that you can generally find, like I said, in the pet store. And I want to start with the most common, because not only can you find it in the pet store, and it's usually sold as a feeder goldfish, it's a goldfish that you would win at the circus or at the church fair or school fair, and that is the comet or common goldfish. This is as common as goldfish get. They're orange, and they're not really gold, or orange and white. And when they're very small, goldfish start out as a bronze color, and they develop the gold over time. So if you win a very small goldfish that's just a gray color at the carnival, don't freak out. It will grow and turn into a nice orange color over time, or orange and red. And one thing you might notice on these, they're all the same variety, just a little different color patterns, is that the tail, it has a nice long tail. Some of these true Sarasa comets are bred for ponds, and so are Shabunkins, with really long tails. These ones, their tails are a little shorter, haven't been bred for ponds, but they'll do great in a pond. They'll breed in there. They just won't have a long tail like a true Sarasa or a Shabunkin. So the goldfish, common goldfish, has one long tail. As they develop more and more varieties, the tail begins to split in what's called a fantail. And most of the strong, expensive varieties of goldfish have that split tail. Common goldfish does not. That is the common comet goldfish. The next non-split tail goldfish is the Shabunkin. The Shabunkin is a fish raised for ponds. It gets quite long. It'll get about this long with the tail. It does beautifully in the pond. When you look down, you can see its flowing fins. Already you can see a very long tail on this fish, both the same species, but that's what differentiates the Shabunkin from a common goldfish. These Shabunkins, their color pattern is called calico, so you can see the black spotting and the white spotting throughout all the 3 fish I have here. One interesting fact, and it is a fact, ichthyologists have proved this, is that goldfish, whether in the pond or in the aquarium, can recognize different people. They recognize the person that feeds them, and they come to them, and they recognize the person that does not, and they hide from them. Other than that, I don't think you're going to have a lot of interaction with your goldfish, but they do recognize you. So take heart in that. I do not recommend Shabunkins or Sarasa comets, for that matter, in an aquarium environment. They are just too long and fast swimming. So it'd be just a little bit cruel to keep them in that confined situation. However, the rest of these goldfish are perfect for the aquarium and don't even require a heater. First up, the red and white Oranda. The red and white Oranda originated in China. In general, all the Orandas originate in China. And then they were imported to Japan, and Japan went further with the breeding. They created from the Oranda what's called a lion head, and they created a Ranchu. But most of the original variations came from China. Orandas were developed to have what's called a wen. It's Chinese for crown. And a crown is a bulbous growth on the top of their head. And for someone who doesn't know anything about goldfish, it might not be that desirable a trait. But for people who are into goldfish, the bigger the wen, the better. This guy at 2 inches, just developing. In fact, there's no prominence whatsoever. I do have some Orandas coming up. You'll see a little bit more of the Orand, but just that little red spot at the top of his head eventually is going to develop into that crown I was speaking of. And here are 2 more color variations, but in this case, they're slightly bigger, so we can see the wen developing on the fish. One is the very classic Oranda called the red cap Oranda. Red cap Orandas have a white body and a red wen. And this guy is big enough that you can just start to see it. I also have just a solid red Oranda in there, which is another classic in the Oranda family. That has a red body and a red wen. In this case, it's orange, but it's still classified as a red Oranda. And you can just start seeing that. Besides the wen, 2 features I'd like to point out on an Oranda. They have the split tail, so the tail goes out in a V, and they have a stocky body, and they have a dorsal fin, the top fin. It's called a dorsal fin. I think all the hobbyists know that, but if you happen to just be watching this and never had a goldfish in your life, it's called a dorsal fin. The reason I'm mentioning that is we're going to go to another class of fish, and these were developed in Japan to eliminate that dorsal fin, get a stockier, more hunchback body. And again, for people who are into goldfish, those are desirable traits. So let's go into the next group of fancy goldfish. So now I have a group of lionhead goldfish. Lionhead are differentiated from Orandas only because they do not have that dorsal fin. They have a short, stocky body. Without their dorsal fin, they look a little bit hunchbacked, and they have the wen, just like the Oranda. So those 2 fish are very similar, except the lionhead does not have a dorsal fin. So these are 2 different color patterns. We have a red head. I don't call it a red cap because it's not Oranda. A red head lionhead, a red and white lionhead, and a calico lionhead in here. These guys are so easy to catch. They're basically a intentionally deformed comet. You have fat bodies, no dorsal fin. And the problem with keeping fish like this in a place like a pond, they'll be prey to any predator that happens to wander around your pond. Keep them in a nice, safe aquarium environment. The water is all the same temperature and from the same source, if you're wondering why I'm just throwing one fish into another. This guy is a step up from those guys. It's called the Ranchu, developed in Japan from the Oranda. Probably was a comet to the Oranda, to the lionhead, to the Ranchu. So the Ranchu is even more deformed, has a fatter, more hunchback body. Again, no dorsal fin like the lionhead. This one's a black Ranchu. He's got a bit of a copper color. The more black, the better. And he will develop a darker color pattern as he ages. Yeah, he's a funny looking guy. And as they get very large, they'll spend a lot of time on the bottom of the tank resting because this body's just, out of this world. I have one more fish without the dorsal fin, a celestial eye goldfish. And it's going to be very obvious why it's called a celestial eye. It'd be nice to get a close-up and really see how wacky this guy looks. This fish, again, does not have a dorsal fin, but he's been bred to get his eyes looking up at the sky. So he doesn't look out, he actually looks up. Easy to find food up there, so don't give him sinking pellets. Flake food might be better for this guy. Now we're going to stick with the weird eye theme, and this is the most common form of the telescope patterned eye, and this is called a black moor. Their eyes are developed to be overly exaggerated, looking out to the sides. If they're not a black pattern, they're simply called telescope. There's red telescope, calico telescope, red and white telescope. If they're solid black, they're a black moor. And black moors are beautiful goldfish, great pets, very hardy. I think they're hardier than some of the overbred fish goldfish, I think the ones we just talked about with the celestial eyes, anything that's really exaggerated, just assume their lifespan is a common goldfish can be 20 years. The more bred they are, take 10% off their years. So maybe 8 to 10 years you can get from a celestial eye. In this case, this guy can live as long as a common goldfish, and he's called a telescope. And these guys all, I should say, that some of the very overly bred ones get at max 6-inch bodies, but goldfish can get 8 to 10-inch bodies, not counting the tail. These guys will get about an 8-inch body, not counting the tail, when they're fully mature. So there are a few goldfish with other eye deformities that are bred into them. One I don't deal with, which is, and for the people out there who have this pet, you know, bless you, it's for keeping that thing alive. It's very difficult to handle. It's called a bubble eye goldfish. So you can look that up, you can Google it. I don't keep it in our warehouse. When you ship these guys around, a lot of times you can damage these overly developed sacs that are around their eyes. So I don't like that handling issue with them. So that's a deformity I think that just, I'm not a big favor of trading in. But here's one I do like to trade in. This is a very deformed goldfish, because what we're talking about as we go into exotic goldfish is breeding in a deformity. This guy is called the pearl scale goldfish. This one happens to be a red and white pearl scale, or around here we just call them golf balls. They're shaped like golf balls. They have a little head out of a big round body. The scales get very luminescent, and you'll get this pearl-like luster off of its scales as it grows larger, which is a nice feature on the pearl scale goldfish. The body always stays round, so a big pearl scale goldfish will look like this, with a little head and a little tail. It does have a dorsal fin, but it always has that big round body. So it's not ever going to be a good swimmer. Do not keep any of these overdeveloped goldfish with aggressive fish. They can't hide from them. They can't swim from them. They are just not meant to be in a difficult setting. Okay, so enough with deformed goldfish that can't defend themselves, but they do make lovely pets, and they will recognize you and thank you for the food. But if you want a goldfish that has a beautiful fantail, no other deformities, we have the Fantail Goldfish, and that's the last goldfish I want to show. It lives a long time, it's peaceful, it recognizes its owners, it doesn't have the hunchback, long stocky body, missing dorsal fin, or deformed eyes, but it is a very pretty goldfish. I have two patterns here. I have the calico pattern and the classic solid red goldfish pattern. And solid red goldfish really is bright orange generally in a goldfish. If you can get red, that's a really great feature, but that has to be bred, and that's a really grade A show quality Fantail goldfish. These I wouldn't call grade A, and like it's orange, that's grade B red. But these are they are beautiful goldfish, and these are two good examples. In the pet stores and in the trade, we call these 2-inch goldfish. As the size goes up, each time you double the size of a fish, generally whether it's a goldfish or these, it's exponential. So you double the price, it goes up. If you double it, it goes up 4 times generally. So a 4-inch goldfish is usually about 4 times the cost of a 2-inch goldfish when you go shopping for these things. And they do grow out, so you don't always have to get a big goldfish. Just keep them happy when they're small. They will grow pretty quickly, actually. So that's the conclusion of the goldfish. And I'd like to get back to one of the comments. Actually, I had a whole bunch of comments on our section about good algae eaters and bad and ugly algae eaters for the aquarium, because I missed a fish. I thought nothing of it. It wasn't in the warehouse. I get this fish from one breeder in Florida, and they're just too small that past month I was doing the filming to bring any in for the show. It's the flagfish, the American flagfish. But I finally got some. I should have had it in the show, or at least I should have mentioned it. In fact, I even got a comment from one of our, I don't know if she's a subscriber, he's a subscriber, but water lover, who said you should do your due diligence before you do a show about algae eaters. And I really did do my due diligence, but I didn't have any flagfish. So I want to show the flagfish today and talk real quick about him. That got me in such trouble for the last episode. These would definitely be in the top 10. Flagfish love to nibble green shoots of filamentous algae. So they do a great job of keeping it down. If it's really developed, you just got to physically remove that stuff and find out what's going on with your water. They are great nibblers of filamentous green algae. They're native to the United States. They go from the Carolinas down through Florida, and they're killifish. The males have a color pattern of the American flag. So it's a very interesting fish. Who could not put that in the aquarium? So sorry for at least 8 people from our last episode that called me out on this. But they're usually about $4.99 in the aquarium store. You won't find them in your bread and butter aquarium stores, but most of your good independent aquarium stores will have flagfish. So these are juveniles. They're not. There's a male in there. You can see a little red in one of the colors of the largest fish in there, but you're not going to see the actual flag pattern until these things are close to 2 inches in size. They don't get much bigger than that. But when they get mature, that's when the males, not the females, get that really beautiful American flag color pattern. Thanks again for coming to the show. Thank you for all the subscribers we just got for the last week. It was wonderful. And I'm so happy that I was able to get those flagfish in to conclude this show. And I actually thank you for the I wouldn't call them native comments. I think it's very cool that people care enough about this industry to, tell me what I'm missing. And anyways, they're here now. Thank you for the likes, and please subscribe. And most of all, please, if you don't have one yet, get an aquarium.